Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
George passed along a story to me because he saw that it happened in Michigan, and I noticed it was reported by the Detroit Free Press, which is the newspaper I delivered as a young man. So it all comes together in one vortex of coolness. But here's the story. Lake Angeles police chief gets probation in drunk driving arrest. This is not good when the chief of police of some town gets a drunk driving arrest. Darcy Moran wrote the story for the Free Press. The man's name is Michael Farley. He's 62 years old. He's the Lake Angeles police chief, and he was arrested following a November 30th, 2019 drunk driving incident with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. Oakland County is one of the counties right outside of the Detroit area. It's where my office is located. It's where I grew up, so I'm very familiar with the Oakland County area. Lake Angeles is a smaller municipality out a little ways, but the police chief is still on the payroll, and he will serve probation after driving drunk during the Thanksgiving weekend of 2019. Police Chief Michael Farley of Lake Angeles was sentenced to 1 year of probation and 4 days of community service following his arrest in Kego Harbor, and that's within Oakland County's 48th District Court jurisdiction. And the sad part is also where Kego Harbor is. In fact, I mentioned before I took Taekwondo lessons in my Taekwondo studio. Master Lee was in Kego Harbor, and so I'm very familiar with that as well. And also 48th District Court, been there many times. That's a district court for Birmingham, Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, Lake Angeles, and a bunch of others. So very familiar with all of the players here, except I don't know Mr. Farley, but he is 62 years old. He lives in Waterford. He pleaded guilty in front of Judge Mark Barron to one count of operating a vehicle while impaired. He had been charged with misdemeanor operating while intoxicated. That's part of a plea bargain, of course. Both charges are punishable by up to 93 days in jail, but Farley avoided more stringent driving penalties with the lesser charge. He also had to pay a $65 fine for not wearing his seatbelt, and must pay more than $1,500 in fines and fees for driving while impaired, according to court records. He was arrested about 9:40 p.m. in the area of Cass Lake and Orchard Lake Roads. That's the intersection right there where this Taekwondo studio was. Building's not there anymore. Police received a report of a possibly intoxicated driver in a red truck. So someone called him in and said, hey, there's somebody drunk out here. The police got involved. They said that Farley smelled of intoxicants and was not wearing a seatbelt and was slurring his speech when the police stopped him. And then he admitted to having had 4 alcoholic drinks. Four drinks. Farley subsequently struggled with field sobriety tests, including incorrectly counting backwards. They asked him to count backwards from 67 to 49, and he requested clarification of what to count after just a few numbers. He was arrested after a preliminary breath test also. Following his arrest, Farley issued a public statement expressing an intent to take full responsibility. I know that I'm not above the law, he said. That said, I'm also not beneath the law. There is in our system of law a process, and I must now go through in order to receive due process under the law. If you are in charge of enforcing the laws in a jurisdiction and you yourself cannot follow the laws of that jurisdiction, you should not be in charge of enforcing the laws. I don't care what anybody says. If you've been arrested for speeding 5 over, that's fine. But the guy's drunk and he's out driving around, not even wearing a seatbelt. I mean, come on, dude, try harder, okay? On Monday, his Bloomfield Hills-based attorney said Farley's sentence was fair given the circumstances and Farley's clean criminal record. He knew there was a consequence, and he's paying for it both in damage to his reputation and the public profile of his arrest, and finally the court's sentence of supervising him for a year, the attorney said. It will go a long way to hopefully satisfy the public that a crime was punished without bringing out the pitchforks and torches against the defendant. Farley still is working full-time for the police department, the attorney said, and the man could not be reached for comment. In a statement issued after his arrest, he said his community honored him with their trust and loyalty. I remain dedicated to the community of Lake Angeles and my role as their police chief. Lake Angeles Mayor Dennis Mitchell said at a December City Council meeting that Farley's status would be considered after the legal process played out. That's according to a story from the Oakland Press. He also expressed confidence in Farley's ability to perform his duties, presumably when he's not drunk. Mitchell could not be reached for comment on Monday. Farley was appointed chief in January 2018 after previously working as an officer for Lake Angeles, according to the city website. He also worked for the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, the Farmington Hills Police Department, and the Lathrop Village Police Department, all other towns in and around the Oakland County area. So, I've mentioned before that I think a lot of people get a first offense, drunk driving, because they don't know any better. And I'm not saying that people don't know they shouldn't drink and drive, but I think that most people, if they had a few drinks and they're right near the threshold of where they're too drunk to drive according to the blood alcohol content, would not necessarily think, boy, I'm too drunk to drive. And so what happens is they go out and they drive and they get involved with something, the police get involved, and they blow a breathalyzer and they're off, they're over the limit and they get arrested. And I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've heard this other places as well, that the threshold now is so low that many people go, I wasn't drunk. But the point is that that first offense needs to be a wake-up call for you to understand that it's got to be lower. But the problem is that when you are in law enforcement, this man has arrested people for drunk driving. I'd be shocked if he hasn't. He's worked for, 4 different police departments? He's the police chief. He oversees people whose job it is to look for people like him who are out drinking and driving. So he has arrested drunk drivers before. He's dealt with drunk drivers. He's booked drunk drivers. He's locked up drunk drivers. He's gone to the court and testified against drunk drivers, okay? So when he goes out and drinks just 4 drinks and finds himself blowing double what the law says you're allowed to have in your system, there's something wrong there. There's a major disconnect there, okay? So I'm trying to remember which article I saw it, because I actually read more than one article on this. I don't see a reference to what he blew in this article. Yeah, I don't see it here. It's the other article I saw. Pretty sure that he was well over the limit, though. And the point is that for him to be well over the limit is not the same as a 23-year-old driver who is right on the line and gets pulled over and they blow just enough to get arrested for it. Technically speaking, yes, they both broke the law. But we do have to hold certain people to higher standards in our society. Judges need to be held to higher standards. They have to behave themselves. Police officers should be held to higher standards, and they should police themselves. And likewise, I think attorneys should police themselves as well and hold themselves to higher standards. And so there are all kinds of different roles that you can have in society. And if people look at you and you represent a group within that society, like I said, lawyers, police officers, police chiefs, judges, whoever, whatever it is, if people look at that person, they go, that person stands for something, they represent something, not just that person, but the role they play. The guy who's the police chief, okay, gets busted for drunk driving, and it's not even a close call. It's off the charts, okay? That's a problem. So, Lake Angeles is not exactly the biggest town on earth, and, the whole force might be 4 or 5 people, but they need to take a very serious look at that and go, this guy is the chief of our police department. Is he who we want running our police department? Is he the one we want when the little kids see the police cars go by? If he's behind the wheel, do we want them to go, yeah, that's the guy. We're proud of that guy. He's keeping us safe from bad things and bad people. And I think they need to take a very, very hard look at that. So as for the police chief only getting probation, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Because, if I went into court with one of my clients in the first offense, there's a good chance I'd get him probation also. That's a fairly common first deal. But I've known people, many people, who've lost jobs because of drunk driving arrests. And I would think that one of the people who should, let's just put it this way, the employer who should look at and go, maybe that guy needs to be reconsidered, that the job would be the police chief of a town who gets arrested for drunk driving. So there you go. I'm off the soapbox now. Questions, comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.